Imagine walking into a room where everyone assumes they know your story just by looking at your clothes. Now imagine turning that assumption completely on its head. That's exactly what happened to one brave teenage girl who wore her jacket with pride and taught a room full of bikers a lesson they'd never forget. Picture this: a group of rugged, leather-clad bikers gathered at a local diner on a sunny Saturday morning. The air buzzes with the sound of motorcycles revving outside, the smell of gasoline and fresh coffee mixing in a strangely comforting combination. These bikers, with their weathered faces, tattooed arms, and confident gaits, are accustomed to commanding attention wherever they go. In this space, they are kings of their domain. People look, people listen, and judgments are made quickly. Into this scene steps a teenage girl. She's barely out of her teens, carrying the unmistakable energy and confidence of youth, yet tinged with the vulnerability of someone still discovering her place in the world. Her appearance on the surface might seem ordinary, or perhaps even quirky, to the bikers who have spent decades shaping an image of toughness and strength. She wears a jacket, slightly oversized, adorned with colorful patches and designs that clash with the dark, rugged leathers around her. To the bikers' eyes, she seems out of place, a soft contrast to their hard-edged presence. The moment she walks in, the subtle judgments begin. It's human nature. When confronted with something unfamiliar, our brains instinctively categorize it. The bikers notice her jacket first, the bright colors, the playful designs, and a few chuckles ripple through the room. They exchange smirks, glances, and quiet comments. Some of them might even whisper, "What's she doing here? Or does she even know what this place is?" In that instant, assumptions are made, opinions are formed, and an invisible boundary is drawn between insiders and outsiders. But here's the fascinating part: the girl does not shrink. She does not apologize for her presence or try to blend into the background. Instead, she walks with a quiet confidence, her head held high, as though she belongs in the room as much as anyone else. And this is where the first lesson emerges. First impressions are powerful, but they are often incomplete. The scene also highlights an interesting contrast. The bikers, by their very nature, are often judged by outsiders for their appearance, leather jackets, tattoos, and a reputation for rebellion. Yet here they are, unconsciously doing the same thing to someone younger, someone less experienced. It's a moment that reflects a universal human tendency. We judge others based on what we see, rarely stopping to consider the stories that lie beneath the surface. In this room filled with loud engines, deep voices, and confident postures, the teenage girl's jacket becomes a symbol of perceived vulnerability. To the bikers, it's something that seems trivial, maybe even silly, a colorful distraction from their world of seriousness and grit. They laugh, they point, they underestimate, and in doing so, they reveal not just their assumptions about her, but about themselves. Their laughter, though seemingly harmless, underscores a deeper truth. When we rely on first impressions, we are blind to the complexity of others. But the story isn't just about judgment. It's about awareness, and it begins in this very moment. While the bikers focus on the bright patches and youthful energy of the girl, the audience observing this scene, whether in the diner or through the lens of storytelling, begins to notice a tension building. The girl's calm demeanor contrasts sharply with the biker's assumptions. There's a quiet power in her composure, a subtle defiance that communicates without words. "I am more than what you see." This scene also serves as a mirror. It asks the audience to reflect. How often do we make snap judgments? How often do we assume someone's abilities, intentions, or character based solely on outward appearances? The biker's laughter is relatable because all of us, at some point, have done exactly the same thing. But the story hints that appearances can be deceiving, and the real lesson is about humility, respect, and the hidden layers of identity that only reveal themselves when we take a closer look. Furthermore, this moment sets the stage for the dramatic turning point. The biker's initial reactions, mockery, amusement, disbelief, create a tension that primes the audience for the revelation to come. It's a narrative tool. By establishing a scene where judgments are clear and assumptions are firm, the eventual discovery of the patch's significance carries far greater impact. In other words, this first impression matters not just in terms of character development, but also in building suspense and emotional engagement for the audience. And let's not overlook the environment itself. The diner, filled with the hum of conversation, clinking coffee cups, and the occasional roar of a motorcycle engine, mirrors the social dynamics at play. It's a space that symbolizes belonging and community, yet also judgment and hierarchy. The biker's laughter resonates more strongly here because it is amplified by the context. They are in their territory, surrounded by peers who share their values and perceptions. For the girl, entering this space is an act of courage, an assertion that she will not be defined by the room or the people in it. Ultimately, this scene, this seemingly simple moment of first impressions, is anything but trivial. It captures a profound human experience, the tension between perception and reality, between judgment and understanding. It teaches that appearances are only the surface, and that beneath every jacket, behind every smile, and within every gesture, there lies a story waiting to be acknowledged. At first glance, a jacket may seem like just an article of clothing, a functional piece meant to keep someone warm or to express a casual sense of style. But in this story, the teenage girl's jacket is far more than a fabric covering her shoulders. It is a statement, a symbol, and a repository of identity. It tells a story before a word is spoken, conveying messages both subtle and powerful. The jacket she wears is bright and vibrant, adorned with patches that catch the eye. Some are colorful emblems, while others are stitched symbols of causes, achievements, or memories. To the bikers, who are accustomed to leather, studs, and dark colors that symbolize toughness and rebellion, her jacket might initially seem almost playful, or even frivolous. There's a hint of amusement in their laughter as they take in the contrasting style. They assume that it reflects naivety, youthfulness, or a lack of experience, but the reality is much deeper. Every patch on her jacket is carefully chosen. Each one carries a story, a memory, or a value. Perhaps one patch represents a personal accomplishment, a competition won, a challenge overcome, or a community service project she's passionately contributed to. Another might honor someone she lost, a quiet nod to resilience in the face of grief. Some patches could symbolize her beliefs, her passions, or her personal journey. To an outsider, these are mere designs. To her, they are badges of courage, perseverance, and individuality. This is the beauty and complexity of clothing as personal expression. What is immediately visible often masks the depth beneath. A jacket, in this case, is more than fabric and thread. It is armor, a visual diary, and a declaration of identity. It communicates courage without shouting, strength without intimidation, and pride without arrogance. And yet, the bikers, judging her by appearance alone, fail to see any of this at first. There's also an interesting irony in the scene. Bikers themselves are no strangers to symbolic clothing. Their leather jackets, vests, and patches often tell stories of loyalty, experience, and identity. They, too, understand that clothing can carry weight far beyond the surface. Yet, in this moment, they are blind to the very same principle when it comes to someone outside their circle. The girl's jacket, a mirror of their own symbolic attire, challenges their assumptions and expectations. Consider the craftsmanship of the jacket. It is not mass-produced or chosen at random. It is deliberately curated. The patches are sewn with care, each stitch a representation of thought, intention, and memory. Even the wear and tear on the fabric, the slight fraying of edges or faded colors, reflects time, effort, and experiences lived. Every element has meaning. This is the kind of detail that speaks to a person's character, their resilience, and their attention to values that go beyond appearances. Yet, these nuances are often invisible to someone who relies solely on first impressions. The jacket also plays a critical role in the story because it becomes the vehicle through which the turning point occurs. Without it, the patch, the pivotal symbol of courage, loss, or accomplishment, would not have been showcased. The jacket frames the patch, making it visible at the right moment and ensuring that the bikers cannot ignore the story it represents. This is a subtle but important lesson. Sometimes the medium is just as important as the message itself. The way we present ourselves, whether through clothing, actions, or words, can amplify our story and demand attention, respect, or understanding. Moreover, the jacket challenges conventional definitions of strength and toughness. In a room filled with seasoned bikers, people who project power, confidence, and experience through their clothing, the teenage girl's jacket asserts that strength does not always need to conform to expectations. Bright colors, playful patterns, and patches do not signify weakness. Rather, they can indicate individuality, courage, and authenticity. The girl demonstrates that personal strength is as much about self-expression and identity as it is about outward appearances or societal stereotypes. It's also worth noting the role of perception in this dynamic. The biker's initial laughter underscores a common societal tendency. We often associate seriousness or credibility with a particular aesthetic. Dark colors might be equated with authority, leather with toughness, and conventionality with respectability. The girl's jacket subverts these expectations, forcing the bikers, and by extension, the audience, to reconsider what truly conveys strength, character, or accomplishment. Finally, the jacket becomes a symbol of courage in its own right. To wear something boldly in the face of judgment requires confidence, self-respect, and a sense of purpose. The teenage girl is not wearing the jacket to please anyone, nor is she seeking validation. She wears it to assert her identity, her achievements, and her story. Every patch is a silent declaration. I am here, I have lived, I have triumphed, I have endured. Through this simple piece of clothing, the audience begins to grasp a fundamental truth. Fashion is rarely superficial. What we wear can communicate volumes about who we are, where we've been, and what we stand for. And in moments like this, when appearances initially mislead, the jacket becomes a powerful instrument of revelation, a subtle herald of the respect and admiration that is about to unfold. Every story has a moment that changes everything, a turning point where assumptions are shattered, perspectives shift, and a deeper truth is revealed. In this story, that moment comes when the bikers notice the patch on the teenage girl's jacket. Up until then, they had laughed, judged, and underestimated her. The colorful jacket had seemed playful, almost naive, a clear marker of her youth and outsider status. But the patch tells a story that no one could ignore. The patch itself is simple at first glance, a small emblem stitched carefully onto the sleeve, yet its meaning is monumental. Perhaps it represents a personal achievement that required determination and courage, such as completing a challenging competition, volunteering in dangerous conditions, or overcoming a significant personal hardship. Perhaps it memorializes a loved one or honors someone lost, symbolizing resilience in the face of grief. The specifics matter less than the undeniable message it conveys. This young girl has faced challenges, endured hardships, and emerged stronger than many might have imagined. When the bikers first notice the patch, there is a brief pause in the room. Laughter dies mid-sentence. Heads tilt slightly, eyes widen in recognition. In that instant, the assumptions they had relied upon evaporate. This small piece of fabric, overlooked at first, speaks louder than any word could. It communicates a history, a courage, and an identity that no outward appearance could have hinted at. And suddenly, the teenage girl who moments ago seemed like an inexperienced outsider commands the room, not through loudness, intimidation, or force, but through authenticity, courage, and lived experience. This is the power of symbols. A patch, a pin, a ribbon, or a badge can encapsulate years of effort, sacrifice, and growth. It can shift perception instantly, creating respect where there was none, admiration where there was doubt. The biker's laughter, once a signal of superiority and judgment, transforms into silence and reflection. They realize that their initial impressions were shallow, incomplete, and unfair. What they had dismissed as just a jacket was actually a tapestry of life experiences, and the patch was the keystone that held the narrative together. The dramatic effect of the patch also lies in the contrast between expectation and reality. The bikers had expected to encounter youthfulness, inexperience, or naivety. What they found instead was strength, resilience, and a story far more profound than they could have imagined. This contrast magnifies the impact of the revelation. It is a reminder that reality often defies assumptions, and that true character cannot be measured by outward appearances alone. Moreover, the patch becomes a tool for reflection, not just admiration. The bikers, who are no strangers to symbolic attire themselves, understand the meaning and significance of the patch instinctively. They recognize that this small emblem represents effort, courage, and experience, qualities they respect deeply. In that instant, they are forced to confront their own biases. How quickly they had judged someone who did not fit their preconceptions. How laughter and ridicule had masked their inability to see the full story. The patch also serves as a lesson in humility for the bikers, and for the audience witnessing the story. It reminds us that every person carries a history that is not immediately visible. Every individual has faced battles, overcome obstacles, and achieved victories that may be invisible to the casual observer. Judging someone based on appearance alone is not only unfair, but also blind to the richness of human experience. The patch embodies this lesson. A small, seemingly insignificant detail can reveal an entire universe of courage, determination, and integrity. The moment the bikers notice the patch is also a turning point for the girl herself. While she had already worn the jacket with pride, the recognition of her story validates her courage and authenticity. It is a quiet triumph, not one of confrontation or rebellion, but of acknowledgement and respect. Her experience demonstrates that standing firm in one's identity, even when misunderstood or underestimated, ultimately commands recognition and respect. This turning point resonates on multiple levels. It is personal, highlighting the girl's journey and resilience. It is social, showing how judgments can be overturned when true stories are revealed. And it is universal, providing a powerful lesson about empathy, awareness, and the danger of assumptions. In a room full of hardened bikers, the patch transforms the dynamic completely. Laughter becomes silence, ridicule becomes admiration, and judgment becomes reflection. Finally, this moment underscores the idea that power is not always loud, aggressive, or visible. Sometimes, it is quiet, subtle, and unexpected. The teenage girl does not shout, argue, or demand respect. She simply wears her story on her jacket, and the power of truth speaks for itself. The patch becomes a testament to the idea that courage and strength are not always obvious. They can be hidden in small details, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. In this pivotal scene, the audience sees a profound truth unfold. Appearances deceive, assumptions mislead, and the stories beneath the surface hold the real weight. The patch is not merely a decoration, it is a revelation. It is a catalyst for change, transforming the atmosphere of the room, shifting perceptions, and teaching an enduring lesson about respect, courage, and the depth of human experience. Respect is a currency earned, not given freely. In many aspects of life, we tend to assume that respect flows automatically from age, status, or authority. But sometimes it is courage, authenticity, and integrity that command it most powerfully. In this story, the teenage girl's jacket, and more specifically, the patch, becomes the conduit for a profound lesson in respect, one that reverberates far beyond the walls of the diner or the moment itself. After the bikers notice the patch, something remarkable happens. The laughter fades, replaced by a hush that reflects sudden awareness. Their eyes, once filled with amusement or condescension, now carry recognition and perhaps a hint of guilt. The shift is subtle but unmistakable. They are no longer laughing at the girl. They are listening. They are absorbing the story she wears, and in doing so, they are learning a fundamental truth about respect. This transformation happens not because the girl demanded it, argued for it, or confronted them directly. It happens because she displayed her story openly, authentically, and unapologetically. Respect, in this moment, is earned through truth and courage. It is the demonstration that being genuine, owning your experiences, and standing firmly in your identity can move even the most skeptical or dismissive observers. The biker's laughter is replaced by a silent acknowledgement. They now see her not as a teenage girl with a colorful jacket, but as someone with accomplishments, resilience, and a lived experience worthy of admiration. The lesson in respect also highlights a universal social truth. We often underestimate those who are younger, smaller, or different from ourselves. Society teaches us to associate authority, strength, and competence with age or appearance. The bikers, seasoned and experienced, initially assume that the teenage girl has nothing to teach them, nothing to offer. And yet, the patch shatters that assumption. It shows that respect cannot be dictated by preconceptions. It must be earned and recognized through authentic demonstration of character. This moment also invites reflection on humility, both for the bikers and for the audience. The bikers, confident in their own identities and experience, suddenly realize that they have been hasty in their judgment. In their laughter and smirks, there is a mirror of human error. We all tend to make assumptions about others based on what we see on the surface. Respect, they learn, is not a superficial acknowledgement. It is a response to courage, honesty, and resilience that cannot be faked or ignored. The teenage girl, by quietly wearing her story, demonstrates another aspect of respect, self-respect. She does not conform to expectations, bend to social pressures, or try to appease her audience. Her strength lies in remaining true to herself. This is a critical lesson, especially for young people. Respect from others is powerful, but it begins with respect for oneself. One cannot demand respect externally if one does not first recognize the value of their own experiences and identity. The atmosphere in the room changes because the bikers are forced to reconsider the hierarchy they had unconsciously established. They are no longer arbiters of who belongs or who is worthy. They are participants in a shared human experience, where every individual carries stories, struggles, and achievements that deserve acknowledgement. The patch, small and seemingly simple, becomes a symbol of this moral and social recalibration, a reminder that respect is not automatic, and that every person carries intrinsic worth that may only become visible when we pause, observe, and listen. Moreover, this lesson extends beyond the immediate scene. In life, respect is often overlooked or taken for granted. People make assumptions, dismiss others, or fail to recognize courage in its quieter forms. The teenage girl's jacket and patch serve as a metaphor for the broader principle that respect must be grounded in understanding. It is earned through actions, demonstrated through authenticity, and reinforced through acknowledgement of one's experiences and achievements. There is also a communal dimension to this moment. Respect is rarely a solo experience, it is relational. The bikers, once laughing in unison, now shift together into a collective recognition of her story. Their transformation is a subtle but powerful social lesson. Respect is contagious, and when one person's courage and authenticity command recognition, it encourages others to follow suit. The room, once filled with ridicule, is now unified in acknowledgement. Silent applause for strength and integrity. Finally, this lesson in respect underscores the transformative power of perspective. It demonstrates that our initial judgments, no matter how confident, are often incomplete. When we take the time to understand the depth of another person's experiences, When we look beyond appearances and assumptions, respect naturally follows. It is not demanded, it is realized. And in this story, the teenage girl, without saying a word, teaches an entire room full of seasoned bikers what true respect looks like. Acknowledgement of courage, recognition of lived experience, and appreciation of authenticity. In short, the moment when the bikers recognize the significance of the patch is a lesson for all of us. It teaches that respect is earned, humility is essential, and authenticity has the power to command admiration, even from those who may initially underestimate us. It is a moment that transcends the diner, the bikers, and the teenage girl, offering a universal insight. Respect is rooted in understanding, and understanding begins when we stop judging at first glance. Courage is often thought of as grand gestures, facing danger head-on, standing up in public to deliver a speech, or confronting a bully. But sometimes, true courage is quieter, subtler, and more profound. It lies in authenticity, in standing firm in your identity even when the world doubts you. The teenage girl in this story embodies this kind of courage, one that is visible not through loud declarations, but through the calm, unwavering confidence she displays as she walks into a room full of judgmental bikers. From the moment she enters, it is clear that she is aware of the eyes upon her, the whispered assumptions, and the initial laughter. She could have taken the easier path, blended into the background, hidden behind plain clothing, or even avoided the room entirely. Many would have done so, fearing ridicule or rejection. But she does the exact opposite. She walks in with her jacket on, adorned with patches that tell her story, vividly, unapologetically, and without seeking permission. This act alone is a testament to courage, the bravery to be seen fully, even when being fully seen invites judgment. Her confidence is not arrogance, it is quiet, rooted in self-awareness. She knows the value of her experiences and the significance of what she carries, both physically in her jacket and metaphorically in her life. Every patch represents a milestone, a challenge overcome, or a personal belief held firmly. She does not need to explain or defend them immediately. The mere act of wearing them is a declaration of self-respect and authenticity. This is a powerful lesson. Confidence is not about impressing others, but about being true to oneself regardless of external validation. Consider the psychological courage involved here. Entering a room full of people who might laugh, ridicule, or dismiss you takes mental strength. Most teenagers, and even adults, might hesitate or feel intimidated in such situations. Fear of judgment, fear of exclusion, or fear of misunderstanding can be paralyzing. Yet, this girl demonstrates emotional resilience by choosing to face that fear directly. Her courage is amplified because it is intentional. She knows the stakes, she understands the potential reactions, and she chooses to remain herself anyway. This courage also manifests as an example to those around her. The bikers, who initially laughed, begin to notice not just the patch, but the poise, composure, and inner strength of the girl wearing it. She demonstrates that courage is not always loud or confrontational. Sometimes it is simply about standing still, holding your space, and letting your authenticity speak. In doing so, she forces everyone in the room to reconsider their assumptions and recognize the value of integrity and confidence. The girl's confidence is intertwined with vulnerability, which makes it even more admirable. She allows herself to be seen fully, without hiding behind masks or social armor. There is a paradox here. True courage often requires vulnerability because it involves taking risks of judgment, misunderstanding, or rejection. By embracing that vulnerability, she transforms it into a source of strength. The patch and the story it tells becomes a visible marker of that strength, signaling to the bikers and the audience that resilience and authenticity are deeply intertwined. Her courage is also a lesson in empowerment. Many people, particularly young individuals, feel pressured to conform to the expectations of their surroundings. Society often teaches that you must look, act, or speak in certain ways to gain acceptance. This girl defies that pressure, asserting her identity confidently in the face of scrutiny. She demonstrates that empowerment comes not from changing yourself to fit in, but from embracing who you are, owning your story, and expressing it boldly, even when it challenges norms or assumptions. The subtlety of her confidence is key. She does not boast, demand attention, or try to dominate the room. Instead, her presence alone commands recognition. The biker's reactions, moving from laughter to respect, are a testament to the quiet but undeniable power of authenticity. This demonstrates that courage and confidence are often more effective when paired with humility and composure. Loudness can demand attention, but integrity and truth earn it. Additionally, her courage highlights the importance of self-validation. She does not rely on external approval to affirm her worth. The jacket, the patches, and the stories they represent are expressions of her identity, not props for validation. This is a crucial lesson for the audience. Confidence rooted in self-awareness and personal values is far more enduring than confidence dependent on the opinions of others. Finally, the girl's courage is contagious. The bikers, having witnessed her unwavering authenticity, are compelled to reconsider their own judgments and behaviors. Her example encourages reflection, humility, and a reassessment of assumptions. In this way, courage is not just personal. It is transformative, capable of reshaping the attitudes of others and inspiring respect, understanding, and empathy. In this story, the teenage girl demonstrates that courage and confidence are not about age, size, or appearance. They are about embracing your story, wearing it with pride, and standing firmly in your identity. The jacket and patch are merely the symbols of this courage, but the true power lies in her willingness to be seen authentically, despite judgment or doubt. Her example teaches that when we face the world with honesty, poise, and self-respect, we can challenge assumptions, earn respect, and inspire those around us. As we reach the final lesson in this story, the message becomes both simple and profound. Appearances can be deceiving, and first impressions are rarely the full picture. The teenage girl's encounter with the bikers illustrates a truth that resonates far beyond this singular moment. It is a universal reminder that judging someone based solely on outward appearances is not only unfair, but also limits our understanding of the richness of human experience. From the moment she entered the diner, the bikers assumed they understood who she was. They saw a young girl wearing a colorful jacket with patches, and their minds instantly filled with assumptions. She was inexperienced, naive, perhaps even unworthy of attention in their eyes. That judgment was entirely based on what they could see, the superficial layer of identity presented by her clothing and her youth. But as the story unfolded, it became abundantly clear that appearances were only a fragment of reality. The patch on her jacket revealed a depth, a resilience, and a life experience far beyond what anyone could have guessed. This is a lesson we can apply in all areas of life. Too often, we form opinions based on surface-level observations. Someone's clothing, their age, their accent, or even their social media profile. These observations are convenient shortcuts for the brain, but they are also dangerously incomplete. The teenage girl's jacket and the patch that told her story serve as a metaphor for the deeper truths that lie beneath the surface of every person we encounter. Every individual carries experiences, struggles, achievements, and values that cannot be captured in a first glance or casual assumption. The story also reminds us that judgment can have consequences. The biker's initial laughter reflected more than amusement. It was a subtle form of dismissal, a denial of the girl's dignity and worth. In that moment, they, like many of us in similar situations, missed an opportunity to see her as a fully realized individual. It was only when they noticed the patch that they recognized the true measure of her character. This transformation underscores a vital truth. By judging too quickly, we risk overlooking the remarkable qualities, stories, and potential of the people around us. Moreover, the narrative demonstrates that respect and understanding are earned, not assumed. The girl did not demand validation or recognition. She simply presented herself authentically. Her courage and confidence spoke louder than words, and the patch conveyed a story that could not be ignored. This teaches an important principle. When we pause, observe, and seek to understand before forming judgments, we open ourselves to learning, empathy, and meaningful connection. We move from superficial assumptions to genuine understanding, from mockery to respect, and from ignorance to insight. The takeaway is also deeply personal. The teenage girl's example encourages each of us to reflect on our own behaviors. How often have we judged someone prematurely? How many times have we dismissed a person's potential, intelligence, or character based on what we could immediately perceive? Her story challenges us to slow down, to look beyond appearances, and to recognize that every individual's life is a tapestry of experiences, struggles, and triumphs that demand acknowledgement. This lesson is particularly relevant in today's fast-paced world. In a society dominated by social media, rapid judgments, and fleeting impressions, the temptation to evaluate people quickly is greater than ever. Profiles, pictures, and snippets of behavior are often all we have before forming opinions. But the story of the teenage girl and her jacket reminds us that reality is far richer and more complex than what we see at first glance. True understanding requires curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look beneath the surface. There is also a moral dimension to this lesson. When we judge others superficially, we reinforce stereotypes, perpetuate misunderstandings, and diminish the humanity of those we encounter. The biker's laughter at first was harmless in intention, yet it reflected a broader truth about how humans often rely on appearances to make sense of the world. By learning to suspend judgment, by recognizing the depth of each person, we cultivate empathy, humility, and social intelligence, qualities that strengthen relationships and foster a more compassionate community. The patch itself, as the turning point of the story, becomes a symbol of hidden depth and potential. It represents the untold stories that everyone carries, the unseen battles that shape character, and the achievements that go unrecognized until we take the time to notice. It teaches that the truest measure of a person is not found in their outward appearance, but in the values they uphold, the courage they demonstrate, and the integrity with which they live their lives. Ultimately, the lesson "Don't judge a book by its cover" is not just a cliché. It is a principle for living thoughtfully and respectfully. The teenage girl's encounter with the bikers provides a vivid, memorable example of this idea in action. It shows that strength, courage, and worth are not always visible at first glance, and that taking the time to understand someone's story can transform perceptions, deepen relationships, and foster genuine respect. In the end, the story challenges us to examine our own assumptions, to pause before forming opinions, and to recognize the power of empathy. It reminds us that behind every person's outward appearance lies a story waiting to be heard, a life waiting to be understood, and a depth waiting to be acknowledged. The teenage girl's jacket, her patch, and the biker's reaction combine to create a lesson that resonates universally. True understanding comes from looking deeper, listening carefully, and respecting the unseen courage and resilience in others. So, what can we take away from this story? That a jacket is never just a jacket, a patch is never just a patch, and a person is never just what you see at first glance. The teenage girl walked into a room full of judgment, uncertainty, and laughter, and she left it transformed, not by shouting, not by demanding attention, but by being unapologetically herself. Her courage, her confidence, and the story stitched into her jacket reminded everyone in that room, and all of us listening, that true respect is earned, assumptions can be shattered, and every person carries a depth we might never expect. So next time you find yourself making a quick judgment, pause, look closer, ask questions, listen, because behind every jacket, behind every smile, behind every person, there is a story worth seeing, a lesson worth learning, and a patch of courage that just might shut you up and leave you in awe. Let's not just walk through life making assumptions. Let's walk through life noticing the patches, listening to the stories, and giving respect where it's truly due.